Hello, my name is Dale Maley. Until about 10 years ago, when you bought about any type of tool, you also got a nice wood, or more commonly, a plastic case to hold that tool. Now it seems rare to get any type of case when you buy the tool. So over the years, I've probably made at least 6 wooden cases for different tools that I have. Now, a few years ago, I bought a sponge like piece to hold my 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch router bits, and I bought that piece at the St. Louis Woodworking Show. Now, this black sponge piece does a good job of holding my router bits. The only problem is, it seems like it's always full of sawdust in my shop. And now that I have over 74 different router bits, the one sponge tool holder won't hold them all. So I decided to buy a second identical tool holder from Amazon. Now here's a photograph of the black foam piece to hold the router bits that I recently bought from Amazon. It turns out it's identical to the one I bought a couple years ago in St. Louis. So after I had 2 of these, I decided I'd build 2 new wood cases to hold the router bits and keep out the sawdust. Now the first thing you have to decide when you're going to build a wooden case for your tools is how big does the case need to be. So that's usually driven by the size of the tools you're going to hold inside the case. So in my example here, the red represents the tallest router bit that I have, and when it's stuck into the foam pad, I measured it's actually 5 inches from the bottom of the foam pad to the top of the router tool. So then I'm going to use 3/16 Luan plywood for the bottom and the top, and I'll put those in a 1/4 inch groove. And then you need to leave some room between the groove and the end of the sidewall board, at least 3/8 of an inch. I'm just using pine, so it's not that strong. On this one, I chose to go with 1/2 inch, as seen here. So when you add everything up, the height comes out of the sidewalls of the case up to 6.5 inches. Now, as we're going to see later, I'm going to use a method where I basically make a box, and then I take it to the table saw, and I saw out the lid section. And my table saw has an 1/8 inch wide blade, and so that'll eat up 1/8 of an inch out of the 6.5. So when I make the sidewall boards, I'm going to actually make them 6 5/8, knowing that I will reduce them by 1/8 when I saw them on the table saw. Now here's an exploded view of what my case will look like. As you can see, I've got the 4 sidewall pieces. I'm using 1/2 inch thick plywood for those. The green top and bottom is 3/16 inch thick Luan. And then I will make a wood handle as shown on the right. Then I'll have some type of hasp as well. Now here's another drawing of the case. The left-hand side, as you can see, the side will be 11 3/4 long. The front and back will be 13 3/4 long. I'm using 1/2 inch pine, as I mentioned, for the sides. We're going to have to cut a 1/4 inch wide by 1/4 inch deep groove into the sides, and that'll allow the 3/16 thick Luan lid to fit into that groove. And you can see the saw line there at 2 1/8. After I build the box, I'm going to take it to the table saw, and I'm going to cut the box on all 4 sides 2 1/8 inches down. Now we need to cut a 45-degree angle on both ends of the side pieces. Now in this particular case, my height is about 6 5/8. The most I can, or tallest piece I can put into my miter saw is about 4 inches or so. So I can't use the miter saw to cut the 45-degree angle. So in my case, I decided just to use my table saw, tilting the blade at 45 degrees, and then using the miter bar to carefully feed it through and cut the angles. Another option would be to use a radial arm saw, or if you've got a miter saw with a sliding carriage, you could use that method as well. And now we're ready to make the 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch wide grooves in the sides, 2 in each piece. I chose to use the router table for that with a 1/4 inch wide bit, and since we're only going a 1/4 inch deep, you can cut that in one pass, and then of course you'll have to flip it around and cut the mating or the other one as well. Other options for cutting the groove are to use a table saw, and you might have to make 2 passes to get it 1/4 inch wide, or you could use a table saw that has a dado set where the blades are set to give you a 1/4 inch wide groove. Now we are ready to glue and clamp up the box, and when I do this, I only glue the 4 corners, the 45-degree angles. I don't try to glue in the top lid or bottom lid on there. You could, but I'm using a pretty sloppy fit because it's 3/16 plywood fitting in a 1/4 inch groove. So I just leave those loose and it works just fine. You don't really need any clamps for this. What you can do is just take some medium duty string as shown here, wrap it around about 3 times and tie it off. And then take anything like an old nail, 16-penny nail, I'll wind it up, and that will cause the string to get tight and clamp it up for you. Because this is more than 6 inches tall, I decided to use 2 sets of string, as you can see here. One's about 1.5 inches down from the top, and then the other one's about 1.5 inches up from the top. So glue it up, tighten up your strings, and then let it dry. Now this next step is almost like magic. So you take the box as shown here, and then set up your table saw. And I've got the blade 2 1/8 inches away from the fence. And then I slide it through the table saw, cutting the first side, and then rotate the box, then cut side 2, rotate it, cut side 3, rotate it again, and then cut the 4th and last side. And what you'll find is this gives you a perfect fit between the lid and the main box. If you try to build these up separately, you'll never get quite a perfect fit between the two. So this method really works well. Now the next step is to make the handle parts. So as you remember, there's 2 brackets or 2 end pieces, and then in this case I'm using a 3/8 oak dowel for the actual handle itself. So I took my typical end design and laid it on a grid that's a 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch, and I usually make that out of 3/4 inch thick material. And if your tool is pretty heavy, you might want to consider using an oak dowel. If your tool or tools are pretty light, you could get away just using a standard birch dowel. Now here's a photo of the first case that I finished. And then I've used a coffee cup in there just to give you an idea of scale of how big the box is compared to a coffee cup. And here's a photograph showing the inside of the box after I inserted the black foam piece in there, and then inserted on. What I did was put my larger router bits into this first case, and I put my smaller router bits into the second case. But it really came out nice. And using the box, it should help keep the sawdust out of the router bits, so I can easily see what I have and decide which ones to use. So in summary, this short video explains how you can design and build a wooden case for your tools. We used a specific example in here for router bit tools, but the same basic concept can be used for any type of tool that you need a case for. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it helps you with your projects, and please subscribe. Thank you.